Exporting LNG means jobs.
We produce roughly 4 million liters of fresh water per day.
How can we increase well-being for all humans within planetary boundaries?
LNG.
LNG.
LNG exports.
LNG.
LNG.
What if the future of transportation could be 90% more efficient than today's standards? Imagine a world where every journey, whether by car, plane, or ship, leaves barely a trace on the planet. With innovations emerging at breakneck speed, the transportation industry is undergoing a transformation that could reshape economies and the environment alike. Today, we explore how these groundbreaking changes in mobility could alter our lives and the future of our planet.
It's an incredibly fascinating time to be alive today because we're witnessing a tipping point in the global energy system that at least has made me very enthusiastic when I try to understand it and see the dynamics of it and how it's unfolding just now. So, for example, the UK was the first nation to ignite the Industrial Revolution with the use of coal. And in this month of September 2024, the final UK coal plant is closing down. So it's the end of an era.
This was when we went from horse and carriage to diesel engines. So we're living a huge opportunity. We are shaping how the next 100 years will look like. Electric is here. It will be the dominant way of transporting over the next 100 years. And that also gives it a great business opportunity and potential to change how we do business. The best case I've seen when it comes to transport, if you compare it to a manual diesel platform versus an optimized electric platform, is a cost reduction of up to 90%. With those kind of numbers, we'll see a massive transition.
These are sectors like steel, chemicals, ammonia production. And then finally, there's transport. And that is about electrifying road transport and using new types of fuel based on electricity for aviation and shipping. So for each of these sectors of the economy, we can describe the technologies that are required to do that. Some of them are a bit easier than the others. Some of them are costless transitions. Some of them we will have to accept a higher cost. The energy transition is the word used for the bit which involves reducing the use of fossil fuels and essentially replacing it with electricity made from renewables or nuclear, some category of zero carbon electricity source, and hydrogen and bioenergy, or keeping some fossil fuels and adding carbon capture and storage. Those are some of the technologies which we require to take the energy system, the energy building industry and transport system, to net zero emissions by 2050.
How are global industries prioritizing sustainability amidst rapid technological growth? According to a 2023 report by the World Economic Forum, sustainable practices in transportation could reduce global emissions by up to 10% by 2030. Our first speaker shares how industries are balancing progress with environmental responsibility, rethinking the way we move, produce, and connect. We start our journey at Chantiers du Atlantique in France, where some of the world's largest LNG cruise ships are being built today.
The construction process is relatively simple. We start by receiving steel plates and steel coils, which we cut in this workshop. And then we have various workshops, assembly workshops, where we build the first modular unit, which we call a panel. A panel is a part of steel which weighs between 50 and 100 tons. These are panels. The panels, we already pre-outfit them, meaning we put the pipes, ducts, whatever we can, the cable trays. Together, we construct big panels, which we lay here along the construction dock on an area which we call the pre-erection area. Deck 4 is what we call the bulkhead deck. So below deck 4, all the ship is split in two different watertight compartments. Yeah. Okay, and so meaning of course, to prevent any consequences of any flooding downstairs. So we have this watertight deck, yeah. and then up above the watertight deck, you have the accommodation spaces, okay. Which means public spaces for guests.
We have a lot of priorities when it comes to sustainability, and what we do is we do a materiality assessment every couple of years to basically sense check our priorities to make sure that they align with our stakeholder expectations. Because of the nature of the industry, a lot of our priorities fall in the environmental area. And if you look at the ships today, we can see the amazing amount of technology that we have on board to really try and reduce any potential impact that we have on the environment. We know that our guests have got greater expectations now. We're making more effort now than we used to actually let them know what we're doing. At one time, people weren't necessarily interested in what was going on back of house, but now they are interested, so we found ways of telling those stories to our guests during their journey.
Electric vehicles are revolutionizing more than just transportation. They are reshaping entire economies. According to the International Energy Agency, electric cars are up to 70% more energy efficient than gas vehicles, saving industries billions annually. Could this transformation signal a new era for affordable, eco-friendly transit?
Aviation is looking at alternative fuels. The locomotive industry just recently announced some hydrogen locomotive engines as well. We're working outside of vehicles with stationary power generation that are also moving to alternative fuels, including hydrogen. So almost everywhere you can think about there being an engine is exploring alternative fuels and hydrogen. We know fuel systems, whether gasoline or diesel, we know how they work. We make high volume, high quality, high performance products for our fuel systems of today. With that as a foundation, our innovation comes when we experience what is a problem that needs to be solved. In this case, how do we contribute to global decarbonization? And then leverage our competencies and our experience. So, for example, I might share our innovation began for hydrogen fuel systems, began with our compressed natural gas injector and our gasoline injector and system, where we used that as a springboard, yep. And then adapted it with different materials, different analysis, different processes to be able to run alternative fuels like hydrogen.
Let me explain a little bit about LNG. LNG is liquefied natural gas. And a lot of us, when we think of gas, we think of gasoline, what powers our cars. But LNG is taking that natural gas, which is under the ground, we're pulling it out and we're cooling it down to negative 260 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 163 degrees Celsius. When we do that, it liquefies, and now we're able to transport it to wherever it's needed around the world.
Being a more sophisticated fuel, its logistics are managed by state-of-the-art equipment. This is important for cruise ships, which require a top-tier level of service, accuracy, and immaculate supply execution. LNG combustion does not emit black smoke or particulate matter, which will otherwise be a real problem for a spotless vessel with plenty of passengers on board. Finally, greener versions of LNG like bio-LNG will become more accessible in the near future, which will soon give these cruise ships the option to lower their emissions even further.
If you think about where LNG is used, you really need to take away the L from the LNG and just think about natural gas. Natural gas is used all around us. I know when I go home, I turn on my grill, it's used with natural gas. I turn on my stove, it's used with natural gas. I turn on my oven, my heater at home, that's all natural gas. Where we've gone in the last 100 years, I mean, we've really gone from the horse and buggy to where we're at today with planes, trains, and automobiles going around the world. So I think a lot of that, the development of energy usage and the way that we use energy, that's where ABB is really focused at. So we're looking at how we can optimize the use of energy, how we can use more electrification in the things that we do, and then further, how do we automate that? How do we make it smarter?
MSC Cruises is actually investing into LNG because it creates already a significant improvement today in terms of greenhouse gas emission. The adoption of bio and synthetic LNG in the future will allow us to reach our ultimate goal, which is the net zero emission. Another good point is there is no visible emission from everywhere, which is actually unique of LNG. We design ships today, the ship will be delivered in 5 years and will last 30 years. So whatever choice we make today has to be a robust choice to ensure the ship is fitted for the future, is fitted for the net zero emission.
The year 2024 marks the end of an era. The UK has closed its last coal-fired power plant, making a historic shift in global energy. According to the UK Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, this move symbolizes a pivot from fossil fuels to clean energy. But what does this mean for the rest of the world? Join me as I explore how this monumental change signals the next stage in our global energy journey.
Here, for example, you see the HVAC, so the air conditioning system, with all the various shots and the various sections of the ship. The way we optimize energy is actually very important. We're talking about a piece of equipment which has approximately 6,500, 7,000 people, right? So it's like a small city.
We're here on the topmost deck. We're seeing the exhaust ducts right here. But the challenge is that you don't see any smoke come out of these ducts these days. You're not seeing, any effluent come. What's happening with all that?
Indeed, when the ship is in operation, you cannot see the smoke anymore, because we've been working on that. Sustainability is key. It's really paramount, and in this shipyard in Chantier l'Atlantique, we started a big program called Eco Horizon in 2008. And from this research and development, we have developed our ship. And this ship is a fruit of our research. And if I look at the past, in 2008, we delivered another ship for MSC Cruises. And today, when I look at the emissions by passenger, we have divided them by 2. So we are very proud of that. But we still have a long road to go in order to reach, hopefully before 2050, the famous holy grail of the zero net.
Picture this. You're on the deck of a sleek cruise ship, feeling the ocean breeze as it glides effortlessly across the water. These floating cities have embraced a cleaner future by turning to LNG, liquefied natural gas, a fuel that's cutting emissions and creating a more sustainable travel experience. But here's the exciting part. We're not stopping there. The transportation revolution is just getting started. And at the heart of it is eLNG, a next-generation fuel that's cleaner, smarter, and built for a sustainable future.
ABB is really a leader in the automation and electrification technology. We've been providing this for the last 50 years within LNG, and where we see this really going is electrifying more of the process. So as we want to do more energy efficient development for LNG, we're now electrifying that LNG. We're still providing the natural gas that is lower in emissions, but we're providing that by taking away the largest emission source at the LNG facility, which is the gas turbine. Now we're putting in a motor and a drive into that process there and creating what we call eLNG. ABB at the heart is an automation and electrical company. A lot of the petrochem refineries that you will see, ABB does a lot of the infrastructure that would go in there. So if you pass by a power plant, the electrical equipment that would be there, the automation system that would run the entire plant. If you think about a oil and gas refinery, it would again be that electrical infrastructure and the automation that would be in the plant that would run the entire facility. I'll take an LNG plant because that's what I'm most familiar with. If you think about the building blocks that make that up, it's really what is creating the refrigeration and the compression for the main part of the plant. So your rotating equipment, so motors, drives, gas turbines, and then you have the electrical infrastructure that distributes the loads around the plant. So your pumps, your motors are being able to run. And then at the heart, you have your automation system. That's really the brains for the organization. So it's sitting in a control room that monitors, and it is able to run the entire facility, and it's really the smarts that would be able to run that.
This ship is connected with a system that manages and send data ashore every 5 minutes. So we know exactly what's happening, and we can actually interact with the crew to optimize every moment the utilization of the energy. Sanitary, kitchens, entertainment, cleaning the ship, because of course the ship is continuously clean, and all the water actually which is used on board before being released in the ocean again, because actually it's treated. It's actually is purified, it's treated, and actually we send back to the ocean a water which is basically almost potable.
What does it mean for the world when the UK, birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, leaves coal behind? Our speaker shares insights on this major milestone, exploring how moving away from fossil fuels could reshape energy systems worldwide.
So then the question becomes, how do you get this lower emitting energy to areas that need it most? And that's where LNG comes to play. So now we can liquefy this natural gas at areas where it's abundant. So if we think about, there's 20 nations around the world that produce natural gas, and they ship them to over 40 countries around the world. Now countries have that flexibility of, where am I going to get this lower emitting energy? And they have different locations, different nations that they can go to get that energy. So it gives them really that flexibility of, where do I want to get my energy from, and not be beholden on one nation that has the pipeline. The benefit here is really that it helps to provide the answer to the energy trilemma that we're all trying to figure out. How do we supply abundant, reliable, and affordable energy to people that need it most?
In the world today, more than 4 billion people live on less than $6 or $7 per day. That's most of the world, and they want this kind of lifestyle too. We try to take a much more inclusive and long-term view, and we've written up what real systems change looks like. And our research question has been, for the whole of humanity, how can we increase well-being for all humans within planetary boundaries? We can push the planet this way or that way, but if we push it too far, then we get a backlash.
In industry, it's a range of different technologies, sometimes using hydrogen, sometimes using carbon capture and storage, sometimes using bioenergy sources. But the crucial thing is, in each of these different sectors of the economy, we know the technologies and we've got to take action. The most important of all is electrify and decarbonize. What we're going to do over the next 30 to 40 years is go from an energy system where we get about 20% of all our energy we use in the form of electricity, and take that to around 65% of all our energy being used of electricity, and then roughly equal amounts of bioenergy, hydrogen, and carbon capture and fossil fuels with carbon capture and storage applied. It is a revolution in the energy system, but it is absolutely feasible. It will deal with the problem of climate change, and it will also give us all sorts of benefits of cleaner and more a livable cities and environment as well.
Friends, I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Futurist. Watch the rest of the episodes of The Futurist, and we have a lot more coming up for you in the next few months.